There's a reason this found you at this exact moment. Not earlier. Not later. Right now. And if you're honest with yourself, something inside you already paused when you saw this. Something told you, wait, this feels different. That subtle pull. That hesitation before scrolling away. That wasn't random. That was alignment. He stands in authority, and his voice cuts through the noise, not loud, but undeniable. Archangel Michael speaks with precision, not emotion. And he says, "You are not seeing the full picture yet." And suddenly everything in your mind starts replaying. That conversation you couldn't quite understand. That situation that didn't sit right with you. That feeling you brushed off because you couldn't explain it. You tried to make sense of it, didn't you? You told yourself, maybe I'm overthinking, maybe I'm reading too much into it. But what if the opposite is true? What if you weren't overthinking, you were underseeing? Because here's the truth you haven't fully accepted yet. You've been looking at something important with missing pieces. It's like trying to understand a story after reading only half the pages. It's like judging a moment without knowing what happened before it or what's quietly unfolding behind it. And deep down, you felt that gap. That quiet awareness that says, something isn't adding up. That's why this moment exists. This isn't just another message. This is an interruption. A deliberate pause placed in your path because heaven has decided you are ready to see what you couldn't see before. And readiness doesn't come from comfort. It comes from pressure. Think about the last few days or even weeks. Things have felt slightly off, haven't they? Not completely raw, not completely clear, just off. You've noticed small shifts, subtle changes, energy that doesn't feel the same, words that carry something underneath them. You noticed it, but you didn't trust it. And that's exactly where the blind spot formed. Archangel Michael doesn't speak in confusion. He doesn't suggest. He declares. And right now, he is making something clear to you. What you thought with the full story was only a surface layer. There are details you did have, and aliens you didn't detect. Movements happening beyond your awareness. Not because you failed, but because it wasn't time yet. Let that settle. Because this is where most people get it wrong. They assume that if they don't see something, it doesn't exist. But in the spiritual realm, truth is often withheld before it is revealed. Not to harm you, but to prepare you. If you had seen everything earlier, you might have reacted instead of understood. You might have spoken too soon, trusted too quickly, or walked away too early. So heaven allowed you to see in parts. Until now. Now something is shifting. You can feel it in the way your attention is locked in. You're not reading this casually anymore. You're leaning in, searching for something deeper. That's because your spirit recognizes this moment before your mind fully understands it. Michael steps closer, not physically, but in presence, and the message sharpens. What is missing from your understanding is now being revealed. And here's where it becomes personal. Because the missing piece is connected to something you've been trying to figure out for a while. Not something random. Something specific. Something that has lingered in your thoughts longer than it should have. A situation. A person. A decision. You've been circling around it, trying to reach clarity. But every time you thought you had the answer, something still felt incomplete. That's because you were solving a puzzle without all the pieces on the table. But now, the table is changing. The pieces are being placed. And the moment you see how they connect, everything will shift. But here's the warning within the revelation. You must stay present long enough to see it clearly. Because this kind of truth doesn't shout, it unfolds. If you rush, you will miss it. If you doubt, you will distort it. If you cling to your old understanding, you'll resist it. And Michael is not asking for your comfort. He is demanding your awareness. Because once you see the full picture, you cannot return to partial vision. You will understand why things happened the way they did. You will recognize what was hidden in plain sight. You will finally see what your intuition has been trying to show you all along. And that moment, it changes how you move, how you respond, and who you trust. So don't look away now. Don't treat this like background noise. Because this is the moment the picture begins to come together. And you are standing right at the edge of seeing it. Type "I am ready to SE" in the comments if you feel this message reaching you. Blessing code 1717 is now activating around your perception. There is a reason why certain things have not made sense to you, and it is not because you lacked intelligence, awareness, or intuition. It is because there has been a veil, thin, subtle, almost invisible, resting over your perception. Not a complete blindness, not a total darkness, but a partial covering that allowed you to see enough to move forward, yet not enough to fully understand. And that is why you have been caught in moments where clarity felt just out of reach, where answers seemed closed but never complete, where something inside you kept whispering, "There is more to this." Archangel Michael speaks again, and his tone does not waver. He does not soften the truth, because what you are about to recognize requires strength, not comfort. He says the veil was not placed to stop you. It was placed to delay what you were not yet ready to carry. And this is where your perspective must shift, because you may have believed that what you could not see was being kept from you unfairly. But the reality is far deeper than that. What was hidden from you was not meant to harm you. It was meant to prepare you. Think about the moments when you felt confused by someone's actions, when their words did not align with their behavior, when situations unfolded in ways that seemed inconsistent or incomplete. You tried to make sense of it using what you could see, what you could hear, what you could logically process. But what you did not realize is that you were interpreting visible events without access to invisible intentions. And that is where the distortion began. Because when you only see part of a situation, your mind fills in the rest. And what it fills in is not always truth. It is assumption. The veil allowed you to function, but it did not allow you to fully discern. It gave you movement, but not mastery. It let you observe, but not interpret with accuracy. And now, that phase is ending. Because there comes a moment in every spiritual journey where partial vision is no longer enough, where surface-level understanding becomes a limitation rather than a protection. And you have reached that moment now. Archangel Michael reveals that what hath been hidden from you is not random information, but critical context. The kind of context that changes how you interpret everything you have already experienced. There were conversations that carried layers you did not detect. There were intentions behind actions that were never visible on the surface. There were spiritual movements unfolding around you that your natural senses could not register. Not because you were incapable, but because the timing of revelation had not yet aligned with your readiness. And here is where the realization may begin to feel unsettling. Because once the veil begins to lift, you will start to see connections you did not see before. You will begin to understand why certain things happened the way they did. You will recognize patterns that were previously hidden beneath isolated moments. And what once felt confusing will start to feel precise, almost intentional. Not chaotic, not random, but structured in a way that reveals there was always more happening than you were aware of. This is why you must remain grounded as this unfolds. Because the unveiling of truth can either bring clarity or overwhelm, depending on how you receive it. If you resist it, you will feel disoriented. If you rush it, you will misinterpret it. But if you allow it to unfold at its own pace, you will begin to see with a level of precision that was not available to you before. The veil is lifting not all at once, but in layers. And each layer removed will reveal something that was always there, waiting to be understood. This is not about discovering something completely new. This is about finally seeing what was already present, but hidden beneath limited perception. And as this happens, you may feel a shift in how you recall past events. Moments that once seemed insignificant may now appear meaningful. Situations you dismissed may now reveal deeper implications. And people you thought you understood may now appear differently in light of new awareness. Archangel Michael makes one thing clear: do not fear what is being revealed. Truth does not come to harm you. It comes to align you. And this is where your strength is required. Because alignment often requires you to let go of previous interpretations, to release conclusions you once felt certain about, and to accept that your earlier understanding was incomplete. You are not losing clarity. You are gaining depth. You are not being confused. You are being corrected. And most importantly, you are not being left in darkness. You are being guided out of it. This is the purpose of the veil lifting. Not to expose you to chaos, but to bring you into accuracy. Not to overwhelm you, but to stabilize your perception. Because what is coming next in your journey requires you to see clearly, not partially. It requires you to understand fully, not assume quickly. And now, that process has begun. Type "My vision is clearing" in the comments if you are receiving this revelation. Blessing code 2020 is now aligning your sight. There is a moment that arrives when truth does not just reveal what was hidden, it also corrects what was misunderstood. And this is that moment for you. Because what Archangel Michael is showing now is not only what you could not see, but how what you did see was interpreted through an incomplete lens. He says this with unwavering clarity: you were not wrong to observe, but you were not accurate in your conclusion. And that distinction matters more than you realize. You have been looking at certain situation, certain people, certain outcomes, and you formed meanings around them. You connected dots. You created explanations. You told yourself stories that helped you make sense of what you were experiencing. That is natural. That is human. But what you did not realize is that your interpretations were built on partial information, and partial information always produces distorted conclusions. Not completely false, but not fully true either. And that is where the misalignment began. Think back to the moments that left you unsettled. The times when someone's actions confused you, when something felt off but you couldn't explain why. You tried to define it using logic. You tried to label it using what you already knew. But deep down, something in you hesitated. Something in you resisted the explanation you gave yourself. That hesitation was not weakness. That hesitation was discernment trying to speak before you had the full picture. Archangel Michael reveals that many of the meanings you assigned were not based on truth, but on what was visible at the surface. You interpreted silence as disinterest, when it may have been concealment. You interpreted distance as rejection, when it may have been positioning. You interpreted delay as denial, when it may have been protection. And in doing so, you unknowingly shaped your emotional responses around interpretations that were incomplete. This is where correction becomes necessary. Because misinterpretation does not just affect how you understand the past, it influences how you move in the present. It shapes your decisions, your reactions, your level of trust, and even your expectations. And if those interpretations are not aligned with truth, then your movement becomes misaligned as well. That is why this moment is so critical. Because what is being revealed now is not just new information. It is a recalibration of your understanding. Archangel Michael makes it clear, what you thought with the full story was only a fragment. And fragments, when taken as complete, create illusions of clarity. You believe you understood what was happening. You believe you had reached a conclusion. But now, as the veil lifts further, you are beginning to see that there were layers beneath what you observed, layers that changed the meaning entirely. This realization may feel uncomfortable at first, because it requires you to revisit moments you thought you had already understood. It requires you to release conclusions you once felt certain about. It asks you to admit that what you believed was truth was only part of it. But this is not a step backward. This is a step into accuracy. You are not losing understanding. You are refining it. And as this refinement happens, something powerful begins to shift within you. Your perspective extends. Your emotional responses stabilize. Your reactions become more measured, more intentional. Because you are no longer responding to assumptions, you are aligning with truth. Archangel Michael emphasizes that this correction is not meant to bring regret. It is meant to bring clarity. You are not being shown where you were wrong to shame you. You are being shown where you were incomplete to strengthen you. Because once you see clearly, you move differently. You trust differently. You decide differently. And this is where the transformation begins. You will start to notice that situations you once viewed one way now appear entirely different. People you thought you understood will reveal new dimensions. Patterns you once overlooked will become obvious. And the most important shift, you will begin to trust your discernment at a deeper level, not because you always had the right answers, but because you are now willing to wait for the full picture before forming them. This is the lesson within the misinterpretation. Not everything you see is everything that is. And not everything you feel is everything that is happening. There are layers, depths, and movements beyond the surface, and your awareness is now expanding to include them. Archangel Michael stands firm and delivers this final correction. Do not rush to conclude what has not fully revealed itself. Because patience is now part of your clarity. Stillness is now part of your understanding. And discernment is no longer something you ignore. It is something you honor. You are learning to see beyond appearances. You are learning to interpret with depth. You are learning to wait for truth before forming belief. And that changes everything. Type ISE beyond the surface in the comments if this correction resonates within you. Blessing code 3030 is now stabilizing your discernment. As this truth settles into your spirit, understand something deeper. Every revelation you receive is not meant to stay with you alone. It is meant to reach others who are still searching in confusion. When you choose to support this mission through Super Thanks or PayPal, you are not simply giving. You are sowing light into places where darkness still lingers. The word declares, "Those who sow in tears shall reap in joy." And this is not distant scripture. It is a living promise over your life right now. I feel the stirring in my spirit to say this plainly. I am stepping into obedience, and I will release my seed to expand this divine message. Your giving becomes a river that carries truth into hearts that are waiting for clarity just like you were. Do not delay this moment, because what you release now returns multiplied in ways you cannot yet see. Heaven is watching your response, and as you act, blessings are being activated over your life. Step forward and give. This is your moment of alignment. There is always a moment in revelation where everything begins to tighten into focus, where the scattered thoughts, the unanswered questions, the quiet unease you have carried all begin to converge into a single realization. And this is that moment for you. Because Archangel Michael is not only revealing what was hidden and correcting what was misinterpreted. He is now exposing the one thing that held it all together, the blind spot you did not know you had. He speaks with precision again, unwavering and direct. You have been looking outward for answers while the missing piece was within your perspective. And as those words settle, something deeper begins to stir inside you. Because this is not about what others did or did not do. This is not about external circumstances alone. This is about how your internal lens shaped what you were able to recognize and what you were not. A blind spot does not mean you cannot see. It means there is an area within your awareness that remains unexamined. It is the space where assumptions quietly form, where beliefs go unquestioned, where patterns operate without your full attention. And what makes a blind spot powerful is not its size, it is its subtlety. Because it does not announce itself. It does not demand to be noticed. It simply exists, influencing your perception without your permission. You have been moving with clarity in many areas of your life, but in this specific situation, this one that has been calling your attention repeatedly, there was something you could not fully grasp. Not because it was too complex, but because a part of your own perspective was limiting what you could see. You were observing accurately in parts, but you were interpreting through a lens that had not yet been refined. Archangel Michael reveals that the missing piece was not hidden far away. It was hidden in how you were framing what you saw. You were focusing on outcomes without fully understanding origins. You were analyzing behavior without fully discerning intention. You were reacting to what was visible without recognizing what was influencing it beneath the surface. And that gap between observation and understanding, that was the blind spot. This is why certain things kept repeating in your mind. This is why clarity felt close but never complete. Because your awareness was circling around the truth, but it could not fully land on it until this internal adjustment was made. And now, that adjustment is happening. You may begin to notice something shifting even as you reflect. A moment where you suddenly see a situation differently. A realization that what you once believed may not have been entirely accurate. Not wrong, but incomplete. And that distinction is important. Because incompleteness is what creates confusion, and confusion is what delays clarity. Archangel Michael makes it clear, the blind spot is not your weakness. It is the doorway to your next level of understanding. And this is where your strength is required again. Because seeing your own blind spot requires humility. It requires you to step back from your certainty and allow truth to reshape your perspective. It requires you to release the need to be right in order to become aligned. This is not about blame. This is about awareness. You are not being shown this to diminish your confidence. You are being shown this to refine your vision. Because once the blind spot is removed, your perception becomes sharper, your discernment becomes stronger, and your ability to interpret reality becomes more precise. You will no longer rely solely on what appears. You will begin to sense what lies beneath. You will recognize patterns before they fully unfold. You will understand motivations without needing them to be explained. And that level of awareness changes how you move through every situation that follows. But this shift requires one critical choice from you: the willingness to see differently. Not defensively, not skeptically, but openly. Because the moment you resist this new perspective, the blind spot remains. The moment you embrace it, the clarity expands. And Archangel Michael is guiding you toward expansion, not limitation. He says, now that you see where your vision was restricted, you are no longer bound by it. And that is the release. That is the freedom. Because what once limited your understanding no longer has authority over your perception. You are stepping into a space where you do not just react to what happens. You understand why it happens. You do not just observe behavior, you discern intention. You do not just see moments, you recognize patterns. And that is the missing piece that changes everything. The blind spot is no longer hidden. The perspective is no longer limited. The understanding is no longer incomplete. And now, you are beginning to see fully. Type "My vision is complete" in the comments if you are receiving this shift. Blessing code 4040 is now activating deeper awareness within you. There is something you must understand now, something that will shift the way you interpret everything unfolding around you. What you have been seeing, what you have been reacting to, what you have been trying to make sense of is only the surface expression of a much deeper movement. And Archangel Michael steps forward with authority to declare this truth without hesitation. What is visible is not the origin. What is visible is the result. And as those words settle into your awareness, you begin to feel the weight of what that means. Because it changes everything. It means that what you have been focusing on, the actions, the conversations, the outcomes, are not the starting point. They are the final layer. They are what rises to the surface after something else has already been set in motion behind the scenes. This is where your understanding must deepen, because there hath been movement occurring beyond your direct perception. Subtle shifts, quiet alignments, decisions made without your knowledge, energy shifting in ways that do not announce themselves openly. And all of this hath been shaping what you are now beginning to notice in the visible realm. But without awareness of what is happening beneath, the visible layer can feel confusing, inconsistent, even misleading. You may have asked yourself, why did this happen like this? Or why did this person act this way? Or why does this situation feel different now? And the reason those questions remained unanswered is because you were trying to understand outcomes without access to the processes that created them. Archangel Michael reveals that there are always two layers to every situation: what is seen and what is set in motion before it is seen. And your focus has been on the first layer, because that is what is immediately available. But now, your awareness is being expanded to recognize the second layer, the hidden movement that determines everything that follows. This hidden movement is not always dramatic. It does not always appear as a sudden change. Often, it is gradual, almost imperceptible. A shift in intention, a change in alignment, a quiet decision that redirects the course of events. And by the time it becomes visible, it has already taken shape beneath the surface. This is why some things seem to change without warning. This is why certain outcomes felt unexpected. Because the cause was not in the moment you witnessed, it was in the movement that happened before that moment arrived. And now, that movement is being revealed to you. Not all at once, but enough for you to begin recognizing the pattern. You will start to notice that what once felt random now appears connected. That what once seemed isolated now reveals continuity. That what once confused you now begins to make sense when viewed from a deeper level. And this is the shift Archangel Michael is guiding you into. The ability to see not just what is happening, but what led to it. He says, do not anchor your understanding in appearances. Anchor it in awareness. Because appearances can be shaped, altered, even manipulated. But awareness allows you to see through those layers into the underlying movement that cannot be hidden once your perception aligns with truth. This does not mean you must become suspicious or doubtful. It means you must become observant at a deeper level. You must begin to ask not just what is happening, but what hath been set in motion to create this. And that question alone will open a level of clarity that was previously inaccessible to you. There is also something else you must recognize. Not all hidden movement is external. Some of it has been happening within you as well. Your perspective has been shifting. Your awareness has been expanding. Your discernment has been sharpening, even before you consciously acknowledged it. And that internal movement is what is now allowing you to perceive the external movement more clearly. This is why this moment feels different, because you are no longer observing from the same level of awareness you had before. You are seeing more. You are sensing more. You are understanding more. And as this continues, you will find that you no longer react immediately to what is visible. Instead, you pause. You observe. You allow your awareness to process what lies beneath before forming a conclusion. And that pause is where your power now exists. Archangel Michael makes this final point clear. When you understand the movement behind the moment, you are no longer controlled by the moment. And that is the elevation you are stepping into. The gut control does not come from reacting quickly. It comes from understanding deeply. The hidden movement is no longer hidden from you. The surface is no longer your only reference point. The process behind the outcome is now within your awareness. And this changes how you move forward from here. Type "I see what is behind the scenes" in the comments if this awareness is activating within you. Blessing code 5050 is now aligning your perception with deeper truth. There is a reason why everything did not become clear to you all at once. There is a reason why answers seemed delayed, why clarity felt just beyond your reach, why understanding came in fragments instead of fullness. And Archangel Michael speaks into this moment with authority and precision, saying, "Truth was not withheld to confuse you. Truth was delayed to test you." And as those words settle, they begin to unlock a deeper realization within you. This was never just about what you could see. It was about how you would respond when you could not see fully. Because perception is not only about vision. It is about interpretation under pressure. It is about how you think, how you react, how you choose when certainty is absent. And you have been walking through a season where certainty was intentionally limited. Not removed, but restricted. Enough for you to move forward, but not enough for you to feel completely secure in your conclusions. This was the test. Not a test of intelligence. Not a test of strength, but a test of alignment. Would you rush to conclusions, or would you learn to wait? Would you react based on assumptions, or would you remain grounded in awareness? Would you allow confusion to control your movement, or would you hold your position until clarity arrived? These questions have been shaping your journey more than you realized. Because every moment where you chose patience over reaction, you strengthened your perception. Every moment where you resisted the urge to force an answer, you created space for truth to emerge. And every moment where you remained still in uncertainty, you proved that you were ready for a deeper level of understanding. Archangel Michael reveals that immediate clarity is not always beneficial. Because when truth arrives too early, before perception is refined, it can be misused, misinterpreted, or even rejected. That is why timing matters. That is why revelation follows readiness. And that is why you are only now beginning to see what was always present but not yet accessible. There were moments when you wanted answers immediately. Moments when you felt frustrated by the lack of clarity. Moments when you questioned why things were not making sense. But what you did not see at the time is that your perception was being shaped in those very moments. You were learning to observe without reacting. You were learning to sense without concluding. You were learning to hold awareness without forcing understanding. And that process has brought you here. Now, when truth begins to reveal itself, you are not the same as you were before. You are not as reactive. You are not as quick to judge. You are not as dependent on immediate explanations. You have developed the ability to hold space for unfolding clarity. And that ability is what makes you ready now. Archangel Michael says, you can now see without distorting. You can now understand without rushing. You can now receive truth without resisting. And that is the difference between early revelation and aligned revelation. One overwhelms. The other stabilizes. This is why you must not regret the delay. The delay was not denial. The delay was development. Everything you experienced during the time when things were unclear was preparing you for this moment. It was refining your perception so that when the full picture begins to emerge, you can process it accurately, without emotional distortion, without reactive interpretation, without unnecessary confusion. And now, something important is shifting within you. You are beginning to trust the process of understanding rather than demanding immediate answers. You are becoming comfortable with allowing truth to unfold instead of forcing it into a fixed explanation. And this shift changes everything about how you perceive reality moving forward. Because from this point on, you will not measure clarity by how quickly it arrives. You will measure it by how deeply it aligns. You will no longer feel the need to resolve everything instantly. You will recognize that some truths require time, space, and awareness to fully reveal themselves. And in that recognition, you gain control over your perception instead of being controlled by uncertainty. Archangel Michael makes this final statement clear. What you now see is not just truth. It is truth you are ready to carry. And that is why this moment matters. Because readiness transforms information into understanding. It transforms observation into insight. It transforms awareness into wisdom. You have passed through the test of perception. Not perfectly, but sufficiently. Not without questions, but with growth. And now, the clarity that was delayed is beginning to arrive in a way that you can fully receive. Type "I trust divine timing" in the comments if you recognize this process within you. Blessing code 6060 is now stabilizing your awareness and alignment. There is a turning point in every moment of revelation where the focus shifts from what is happening around you to what has been happening through you. And this is that turning point. Because Archangel Michael is now revealing something that may feel unexpected at first, something that requires honesty, awareness, and strength to receive. He says, you have not just been observing this situation, you have been participating in it. And as those words settle, a deeper layer of understanding begins to open within you. This is not about blame. This is not about fault. This is about role. Because every situation, every dynamic, every unfolding event carries not only external movement, but internal positioning. And while you have been focused on what others have done, what circumstances have created, what outcomes have appeared, there has also been a role you were playing within it, often without full awareness. You were responding in certain ways. You were interpreting through certain patterns. You were allowing certain things to continue, not because you intended to, but because your perception at the time made it seem acceptable, explainable, or incomplete. And that is where your role existed, not as the cause, but as a participant within the unfolding. Archangel Michael makes this clear. Participation does not mean responsibility for everything. It means influence within something. And influence can be subtle. It can appear in the way you remained silent when something felt off. It can appear in the way you gave the benefit of the doubt repeatedly, even when your intuition hesitated. It can appear in the way you adjusted your understanding to fit what you could see, instead of waiting for what you could not yet see. These were not mistakes made in ignorance. These were responses shaped by the level of awareness you had at the time. But now, that awareness is expanding. And with expansion comes recognition. You may begin to see moments where you allowed something to continue longer than it should have. Moments where you overlook details that now seem obvious. Moments where you interpreted in a way that kept you within a certain pattern instead of stepping outside of it. And this realization is not here to create regret. It is here to create power. Because the moment you recognize your role, you reclaim your ability to change it. Archangel Michael says, what you were unaware of, you could not shift. What you now see, you can no longer remain within. And that is the shift happening right now. You are no longer moving unconsciously within the same dynamic. You are becoming aware of how your perception, your responses, and your positioning contributed to how things unfolded. And that awareness changes everything. Because from this point forward, you will not respond in the same way. You will not overlook the same signals. You will not interpret through the same limited lens. You will recognize earlier. You will discern deeper. You will choose differently. But there is something else you must understand about your role. You were not just participating, you were also learning. Every moment that felt confusing was refining your awareness. Every situation that seemed unclear was strengthening your discernment. Every time you questioned what you were seeing, you were developing the ability to perceive beyond the surface. And that development is what has brought you to this level of clarity now. So your role was not accidental. It was necessary. Necessary for your growth. Necessary for your awareness. Necessary for your ability to now see what you could not see before. Archangel Michael emphasizes this truth. You were not placed in this to remain the same. You were placed in this to evolve your perception. And that evolution is now complete enough for you to step into a different position within your awareness. You are no longer just reacting. You are no longer just observing. You are now understanding. And when understanding replaces reaction, your role changes automatically. You begin to set boundaries where you once allowed continuation. You begin to trust your discernment where you once questioned it. You begin to step out of patterns that once held you in place, not because you were weak, but because you did not yet see them fully. Now you do. And this is where your power becomes active. Because awareness without action is incomplete. But awareness with aligned action transforms everything that follows. And Archangel Michael is guiding you toward that transformation now. Not forcing, not rushing, but positioning you to move differently from this point forward. He says, you are no longer the same participant. You are now the one who sees. And that distinction is critical. Because once you become the one who sees, you are no longer influenced in the same way. You are no longer drawn into the same cycles. You are no longer affected by the same limitations. You step into a new role. A role of awareness. A role of clarity. A role of intentional movement. And that is the role you were always meant to step into. Now, it is fully available to you. Type "I see my role" clearly in the comments if this realization is aligning within you. Blessing code 7070 is now activating conscious awareness and empowered positioning in your life. There is a moment when awareness does not just stay within you, it begins to alter everything around you. And that moment is now unfolding. Because what has been revealed to you is not meant to remain internal. It is meant to shift the atmosphere you are standing in. Archangel Michael steps forward again with undeniable authority and declares, when your perception changes, your environment must respond. And that is the shift you are beginning to feel. It may not appear dramatic at first. It may not announce itself loudly. But something is already different. The way you are processing things has changed. The way you are responding has slowed down. The way you are sensing what is happening around you has deepened. And because of that internal shift, the external environment can no longer interact with you in the same way it did before. This is what most people do not understand. They believe that change begins outside and then affects them. But in truth, the most powerful change begins within and then reshapes everything it touches. And you have reached that internal turning point. You are no longer seeing through the same lens. You are no longer interpreting through the same patterns. And because of that, the same situations will no longer produce the same results. You may begin to notice that certain dynamics feel different. Conversations may carry a new tone. Situations that once pulled a reaction from you may now feel neutral or even clear. People may respond to you in ways that seem unexpected. Some may draw closer, sensing your clarity. Others may create distance, unable to engage with you in the same way as before. This is not coincidence. This is the atmosphere adjusting to your new level of awareness. Archangel Michael explains this shift with precision. What aligned with your previous perception cannot fully align with your present clarity. And that is why some things may begin to feel out of place. Not because they changed him, but because you did. What once felt normal may now feel inconsistent. What once felt acceptable may now feel misaligned. And what once held your attention may no longer carry the same weight. This is not loss. This is refinement. Because clarity removes what confusion once tolerated. Awareness exposes what assumption once covered. And understanding separates what surface-level perception once grouped together. And as this continues, you will find that your environment naturally reorganizes around your new perception. You will not need to force change. You will not need to explain your shift. You will not need to convince anything or anyone. A shift will speak for itself. There is also something else happening within this atmospheric change. Your energy is becoming more stable. Not reactive, not easily influenced, not pulled in multiple directions. You are becoming anchored, and that anchoring creates a different presence. One that does not fluctuate based on what is happening externally, but remains grounded in what you now understand internally. Archangel Michael says, you are no longer adjusting to the environment. The environment is adjusting to you. And this is where your authority begins to activate. Not authority over others, but authority over your own perception, your own responses, your own alignment. And that internal authority is what creates external stability. You will begin to notice that you do not feel the same urgency to react. You do not feel the same need to resolve everything immediately. You do not feel the same pressure to interpret quickly. Instead, you observe. You process. You allow clarity to guide your movement instead of impulse. And this shift alone changes the entire rhythm of your interactions. But with this shift also comes a quiet warning. Because not everything will remain as it was. Some connections may feel different. Some patterns may no longer continue. Some environments may no longer feel aligned with who you are becoming. And this is not something to resist. It is something to recognize. Because when perception evolves, alignment must follow. Archangel Michael makes this final statement clear. Do not try to hold on to what your clarity has outgrown. And this is where your trust becomes essential. Because the shift in the atmosphere is not removing things from you. It is repositioning you into alignment with what matches your new level of awareness. You are not losing ground. You are gaining precision. You are not being separated from what matters. You are being aligned with what is true. And as this continues, you will find that your environment becomes less confusing, less reactive, less uncertain. Not because everything outside becomes perfect, but because your perception no longer distorts what you are seeing. This is the shift. The atmosphere is no longer the same. Because you are no longer the same. And everything from this point forward will begin to reflect that truth. Type "I accept the shift" in the comments if you feel this transformation within you. Blessing code 8080 is now stabilizing your environment and aligning it with your clarity. As this shift settles into your spirit, understand this deeply. What is transforming in you is not meant to stop with you. Every moment of clarity you receive becomes a light that can guide someone else out of confusion. When you choose to support this mission through Super Thanks or PayPal, you are not just giving, you are planting seeds of truth into lives that are still searching for direction. The word speaks, "Give, and it shall be given unto you," and this is not a distant promise. It is active, alive, and moving through you right now. I feel this strongly. I am stepping into alignment, and I release my seed to expand this divine work. Your giving becomes a flow, a river carrying revelation to those who need it most. Do not hesitate in this moment, because your action is part of something greater than what you can see. Step forward now and give. This is your moment of divine participation. There are moments when revelation is given as guidance, and there are moments when revelation is given as a warning. And this is one of those moments, because what hath been shown to you is not actual awareness. It is necessary clarity. Archangel Michael stands with unshaken authority and speaks with unmistakable precision. What you have now seen cannot be unseen, and what you choose to do with it will determine what follows. And as those words settle, the weight of this moment becomes clear, because awareness carries responsibility, not pressure, not fear, but responsibility. You have crossed a threshold. You are no longer in the place of partial vision. You are no longer interpreting blindly. You are no longer unaware of the deeper movement, the corrected perception, the role you played, and the shift that has already begun. And because of that, remaining the same is no longer neutral. It becomes misalignment. This is the warning, not of something external approaching you, but of what happens internally if you choose to ignore what has been revealed. Archangel Michael says, to see and then dismiss is to return to confusion by choice. And that is where many lose their clarity, not because truth was not given, but because it was not honored, because it was set aside in favor of comfort, familiarity, or convenience. You may feel the pull already, the pull to go back to previous interpretations, the pull to explain things the way you used to, the pull to minimize what you have just understood. That pull is subtle. It does not feel like resistance at first. It feels like ease. It feels like familiarity. But familiarity is not always alignment, and ease is not always truth. Because what is familiar belongs to the level of awareness you have now moved beyond. If you ignore this shift, you will begin to feel a quiet tension within yourself. Situations that once felt manageable will begin to feel heavy again. Interactions that once seemed clear will become confusing. Not because anything external has changed, but because you are attempting to operate at a previous level of understanding while holding a higher level of awareness. And that creates internal conflict. Archangel Michael makes this clear. Misalignment after revelation creates instability. Because once clarity is given, it becomes the standard. And moving against that standard produces friction, not externally, but internally. You may notice hesitation where there was once certainty. You may feel doubt where there was once clarity. You may experience confusion returning in ways that feel familiar, but it will not feel the same as before. Because before, the confusion came from not knowing, and now it would come from not applying what you know. And that is a different experience entirely. This is why the warning is necessary. Not to create fear, but to prevent regression. Because regression does not happen suddenly. It happens gradually, through small choices to ignore what has already been revealed. through decisions to prioritize comfort over clarity, through moments where awareness is acknowledged but not acted upon. And each of those moments pulls you slightly away from alignment. But understand this clearly. This is not a point of no return. This is a point of decision. Archangel Michael is not declaring consequence without offering direction. He is showing you what is at stake so that you can remain aligned with what has been given to you. Because once you choose to honor this awareness, everything stabilizes again. The tension disappears. The clarity returns. The alignment strengthens. He says what you apply will remain. What you ignore will repeat. And this is the pattern you must recognize. Because if you apply what you now see, the cycle ends. But if you ignore it, the same patterns will attempt to reappear, not as punishment, but as repetition. Not because you are meant to struggle, but because unintegrated awareness seeks completion. This is why your response now matters. Not in a dramatic way, not in a forced way, but in a consistent, intentional way. In how you think, in how you interpret, and how you choose moving forward. You are not being asked to do something extreme. You are being asked to remain aligned with what you now understand, to trust your perception, to honor your clarity, to move with awareness instead of assumption. And when you do, something powerful happens. The confusion does not return. The patterns do not repeat. The clarity becomes stable. Because you are no longer stepping in and out of awareness, you are remaining within it. Archangel Michael closes this warning with a final declaration. You have been shown enough to move forward correctly, and that is the confirmation you need. You are not lacking information. You are not missing pieces. You have been given what is necessary. Now, it is about what you choose. You can move forward in alignment, allowing this clarity to guide you. Or you can step back into familiarity, allowing confusion to re-enter. But you cannot do both, because you now see the difference. Type "I choose clarity" in the comments if you are committing to this alignment. Blessing code 9090 is now sealing your awareness and protecting your direction. There comes a moment when awareness is no longer enough on its own. A moment when what has been revealed must now be anchored into how you live, how you move, how you respond. And this is that moment for you. Because Archangel Michael is no longer speaking about what you see, he's now speaking about what you must do with what you see. He says with unmistakable authority, clarity without alignment will not sustain you. What you understand must now become how you operate. And this is where everything becomes real. Because up until now, you have been receiving. You have been observing. You have been allowing truth to unfold within you. But alignment requires something different. It requires participation. It requires intention. It requires that you bring your actions into agreement with your awareness. This is not about making drastic changes all at once. It is about immediate internal adjustment. A shift in how you think, how you interpret, how you respond in real time. Because alignment does not begin with what you do externally. It begins with what you accept internally as truth. You must first accept that what you now see is accurate. Not partially, not conditionally, but fully. Because hesitation in acceptance creates hesitation in action. And hesitation is where old patterns attempt to return. Archangel Michael makes this clear. Do not negotiate with clarity. Accept it and let it guide you. And that is the first step of alignment, removing the space between what you know and what you trust. Once that acceptance is established, your actions begin to shift naturally. You will notice that you pause before responding. You will feel a new awareness guiding your decisions. Situations that once triggered immediate reactions will now invite observation first. And in that space, alignment begins to take form. You are no longer reacting from assumption. You are responding from understanding. And that distinction changes everything. There is also a deeper level to this alignment that you must recognize. It is not only about how you respond to external situations. It is about how you position yourself within them, where you place your attention, where you invest your energy, what you allow to remain within your space. Because now that you see clearly, continuing to engage with what is misaligned will create friction within you. Not because you are unable to handle it, but because your awareness no longer supports it. And that friction is not meant to confuse you, it is meant to redirect you. Archangel Michael says, alignment requires separation from what clarity has already revealed as inconsistent. And this is where your strength becomes active. Because you will be faced with moments where you must choose between what feels familiar and what is actually aligned. Familiar may feel easier. Aligned will feel correct. And the more you choose alignment, the more stability you will experience. This does not mean everything around you will change instantly. It means your relationship to everything around you will change immediately. And that shift is what creates long-term transformation. Because once your internal position is aligned, external outcomes begin to reorganize naturally over time. You will also begin to notice that your intuition becomes stronger. Not because it suddenly appeared, but because you are now listening to it without resistance. You are allowing it to guide you without second-guessing. And that guidance becomes more precise with each aligned decision you make. This is how clarity becomes consistency. This is how awareness becomes direction. This is how understanding becomes transformation. But there is one more thing you must hold on to as you step into this alignment. Do not rush. Alignment is not about speed. It is about accuracy. Every decision you make from this point forward must come from the place of clarity you have just received, not from urgency or pressure. Because urgency belongs to confusion. Clarity moves with intention. It does not need to hurry, because it knows exactly where it stands. Archangel Michael closes this instruction with a firm declaration. You are now positioned to move correctly. Do not return to movement without awareness. And that is the final key. Because movement without awareness is what created confusion before. But now, you have the awareness that ensures your movement remains aligned. You are no longer guessing. You are no longer reacting blindly. You are no longer operating from incomplete understanding. You are aligned. And from this point forward, every step you take carries the weight of that alignment. Type "I walk in alignment" in the comments if you are stepping into this new level of clarity. Blessing code 1010 is now activating consistent alignment and guided movement in your life. There is a moment when everything you have received begins to confirm itself, not through words, not through explanation, but through undeniable internal and external signals that align with what has been revealed. And this is where you are now. Because Archangel Michael is not leaving you in uncertainty about whether this shift is real. He is now showing you how you will recognize that you are truly stepping into clarity. He says with calm authority, clarity does not announce itself loudly. It stabilizes quietly. And when it is real, you will feel it before you question it. This is important, because many expect clarity to arrive with intensity, with overwhelming certainty, with sudden dramatic change. But true clarity does not overwhelm. It settles. It grounds. It creates a sense of internal steadiness that does not need constant validation. And that is the first confirmation you will begin to notice. You will feel more stable within yourself. Not because everything around you has changed, but because your interpretation of it has. Situations that once created internal noise will now feel quieter. Thoughts that once circled endlessly will begin to resolve themselves without force. You will notice that your mind is no longer racing to explain everything, because your awareness already understands what matters. This internal stability is your first sign, and it will not feel forced. It will feel natural. Archangel Michael explains, when clarity is present, confusion loses its ability to sustain itself. And that is exactly what will begin to happen. Confusion will not disappear instantly, but it will no longer dominate your thinking. It will no longer control your reactions. Instead, it will fade in the presence of understanding. Another confirmation will appear in how you respond to situations that once triggered you. You will notice a pause, a space between what happens and how you react. And in that space, you will choose differently. Not because you are trying to control yourself, but because your awareness naturally guides you toward a more aligned response. You will no longer feel the urgency to react immediately. You will no longer feel the need to resolve everything instantly. You will observe first. You will understand before responding. And that shift in response is a clear sign that your perception has changed. There is also a deeper confirmation that will appear in your discernment of people and environments. You will begin to sense alignment or misalignment without needing prolonged analysis. You will recognize what feels consistent with your clarity and what does not. And this recognition will not come from judgment, it will come from awareness. You will simply know. Not emotionally, not impulsively, but steadily. Archangel Michael says, discernment becomes effortless when perception is aligned. And this is where you are moving now. Into a space where understanding does not require struggle, where clarity does not require constant questioning, where awareness operates without resistance. You may also notice that certain things no longer hold your attention in the same way. Situations that once felt important may now feel unnecessary. Conversations that once engaged you may now feel surface level. And this is not detachment in a negative sense. It is refinement. Because clarity removes what is not essential. It sharpens your focus. It redirects your energy. And it aligns your attention with what truly matters. This is another confirmation. You are no longer scattered. You are becoming precise. There is also something else you will begin to recognize. You will feel less need for external validation. You will not require others to confirm what you already understand. You will not depend on outside perspectives to define your perception, because your clarity will stand on its own. And that independence is not isolation. It is alignment. Archangel Michael makes this final point clear. When you are aligned with truth, you do not search for it outside of yourself. And this is the state you are entering. A state where your awareness is grounded, your perception is stable, and your understanding is consistent. This does not mean you will never question again. It means your questions will come from curiosity, not confusion. It means your thinking will come from awareness, not uncertainty. It means your movement will come from clarity, not assumption. And that is the confirmation you have been waiting for. Not something external proving it to you, but something internal stabilizing within you. You are stepping into clarity, not partially, not temporarily, but consistently. And from this point forward, everything you experience will be filtered through this new level of awareness. Type "I am clear" in the comments if you feel this confirmation within you. Blessing code 1111 is now stabilizing your clarity and strengthening your perception. This is the moment where everything comes together, not as fragments, not as partial understanding, but as a complete, undeniable realization of what you now carry within you. Because Archangel Michael does not bring you through revelation without purpose. He does not uncover truth simply for awareness. He uncovers it for activation. And now, he stands in full authority and delivers the final charge. You now see what others cannot. And because you see, you must move differently. This is not a suggestion. This is a calling. Because clarity is not passive. It is not something you hold quietly while continuing to move the same way. It is something that transforms your posture, your presence, your decisions, and your direction. And now, you are standing in a position where you can no longer return to the level of perception you once operated in. You have seen the missing pieces. You have understood the misinterpretations. You have recognized the blind spot. You have felt the shift. You have received the confirmation. And now you are responsible for what you do with it. Archangel Michael makes this clear with unwavering certainty. To see clearly is to be set apart. And this is where many hesitate because being set apart does not always feel comfortable. It means you will notice things others ignore. It means you will recognize patterns others overlook. It means you will feel misalignment where others feel normalcy. And that difference can feel isolating if you do not understand its purpose. But you must understand this now. You were not given this clarity to fit in. You were given this clarity to stand firm. Because when you see what others cannot, you become a stabilizing force in environments that lack awareness. You become someone who does not get pulled into confusion. Someone who does not react to surface-level appearances. Someone who moves with intention rather than impulse. And that presence carries weight. You may begin to notice that people respond to you differently. Not always in obvious ways, but subtly. Some will feel drawn to your clarity, even if they cannot explain why. Others may feel uncomfortable around your awareness, because it reflects what they are not yet ready to see. And this is not something you need to control. It is something you need to understand. Because your role is not to convince. Your role is not to explain. Your role is to remain aligned. Archangel Michael says, let your clarity speak through your movement. And that is the final instruction. Because how you move from this point forward will communicate more than words ever could. The way you respond, the way you choose, the way you hold your awareness, these will become the evidence of what has shifted within you. This is where your discipline becomes essential. Not discipline and force, but discipline and consistency. Consistency in how you apply what you now understand. Consistency in how you remain grounded in clarity even when situations attempt to pull you back into old patterns. Consistency in how you trust your perception without needing constant reassurance. Because there will be moments where the old patterns try to reappear. Not with the same intensity, but with familiarity. Moments where it would be easier to interpret things the old way. Moments where reacting quickly would feel more natural than observing deeply. But you are no longer the same. And Archangel Michael reminds you, you are not here to repeat what you have already outgrown. And that is the line you must hold. Not aggressively, not forcefully, but with quiet certainty. Because once you have seen clearly, returning to partial vision is no longer an option. You are now positioned differently. You think differently. You interpret differently. You move differently. And that difference will define everything that follows in your life. This is the charge. Not to become someone new, but to fully become who you already are at this level of awareness. To walk in clarity without shrinking it. To hold your perception without doubting it. To move with understanding without abandoning it when things become uncomfortable. Because this is not a temporary moment. This is a permanent shift. And from this point forward, you are no longer searching for the full picture. You are living from it. Type "I walk in full clarity" in the comments if you are receiving this final charge. Blessing code 1212 is now sealing your perception and activating your highest level of awareness. As this final revelation settles into your spirit, understand this deeply. What has been unlocked in you is not meant to stay contained. It is meant to flow outward and reach those still searching in darkness. Every seed you sow into this mission becomes light planted in another soul's path, guiding them into the same clarity you have just received. The word declares, "Cast your bread upon the waters, and it shall return to you." And this is not symbolic. It is a living exchange unfolding right now. I feel this strongly rising within. I am stepping into obedience, and I release my seed to expand this divine assignment. Your giving through PayPal is not a donation. It is a prophetic act that opens channels of blessing, provision, and spiritual increase over your life. The link is in the description, and the QR code is already placed before you. This is your moment to respond. Do not delay what heaven is prompting you to do. Act now, sow now, and watch what returns multiplied.